Welcome to Pod 4 Journal Club. Today, we are diving into a really cool paper that gives us a completely new way to visualize why our smartest AIs sometimes get things spectacularly wrong.
So, here's our roadmap. We're going to start with the big mystery of AI hallucinations. Then, we'll explore this wild new geometric idea that might just explain it all. We'll look at the evidence, talk about the limits of the theory, and then finish up with something truly exciting: how this new map of an AI's mind could actually help us fix the problem for good.
Okay, let's dive right in with a frustrating mystery that, well, anyone who's played around with a chatbot has probably bumped into.
I mean, it's a total paradox, right? An AI can write a beautiful poem or debug a piece of code, but then it'll turn around and just invent a historical fact with complete and utter confidence. It's not just that it's wrong, it's that it produces this fluent, totally plausible sounding nonsense.
And let's be clear, this isn't just some funny little quirk. This tendency to hallucinate is probably the single biggest roadblock to using these amazing tools in fields where being right is absolutely critical. You can't have an AI giving medical or legal advice if you can't trust what it's saying.
So how do we fix this? Well, this brings us to a really fascinating idea from the paper. What if the problem isn't about logic or memory, not in the way a human thinks about it? What if it's actually about geometry?
Okay, to get this, we first need to kind of picture the AI's internal world. Think of it like a huge, complex, multi-dimensional map. They call this a latent space. And on this map, every single concept, every word, every relationship, it all has a specific location.
So when an AI is coming up with an answer, it's not just pulling a file from a folder. It's actually plotting a course, a trajectory, across this mental map. It's moving from one point to the next, layer by layer, as it builds the sentence, word by word.
And here it is, the key idea. This map isn't flat. It has these dangerous valleys or basins. You can almost think of them like gravitational wells. If the AI's path of thought gets a little too close to one, it gets sucked in, trapped, and then it just starts spiraling towards a generic and often totally incorrect answer.
So you might be wondering, how on earth do you map something like this? Well, the researchers had a really clever method. First, they find the AI's default state by giving it really vague, unhelpful prompts. Then, they trace the paths for both correct answers and wrong ones to see where they go, and more importantly, where those wrong answers tend to cluster.
Now here's where it gets really interesting. The shape of this mental map, it's not fixed. It actually changes dramatically depending on the type of question you're asking.
So the researchers looked at two main types of tasks. You've got your factoid tasks. These have one single right answer. And then you have generation tasks, like asking for a summary, which can have tons of different perfectly valid answers.
And check this out. For those simple, fact-based questions, the map is crystal clear. The correct answers, shown here in blue, and the hallucinations, in red, are in completely separate neighborhoods in that latent space. They are geometrically distinct. It's a clean map.
But then look what happens with more complex tasks, like summarization. The map just becomes a total mess. The blue and red dots, the good answers and the bad, are all mixed up together. That clean separation is completely gone, which makes it so much easier for the AI's path to accidentally get pulled into one of those hallucination basins.
And this table basically puts hard numbers on what we're seeing in that picture. The researchers created a metric called the variance ratio. All you need to know is that it's a number that measures how separated the truth region is from the hallucination region. For factoid tasks, that number is huge, like 10, meaning they're really far apart. But for the complex tasks, the ratio is super close to 1, which just confirms what we saw. Those two states are geometrically all tangled up.
Now, of course, this geometric map is a really powerful way of thinking, but like any good scientific theory, it doesn't explain everything perfectly. The authors are very clear about its limits. For instance, the theory runs into some trouble when an AI has been trained on a bunch of common myths or falsehoods from the internet. In that case, the AI forms a confident but totally wrong basin that looks just like a factual one. Plus, the map might look different for different AI architectures, and maybe most importantly, you need really deep access to the model's inner workings to even do this kind of analysis.
Okay, but this leads us to what I think is the most exciting part of this entire paper. Because if this theory is right, if these basins really are the cause of hallucinations, then we should be able to use that knowledge to actively steer the AI away from them.
Which brings us to the million-dollar question, right? Is this whole geometric landscape just a side effect of the AI getting confused? Or is it the actual cause of the hallucination? To figure that out, the researchers ran a really cool experiment.
What you're looking at here is what's called a dose-response curve. They took a thought path that was heading for a correct answer, and then inside the model, they gently nudged it, step by step, closer and closer to a known hallucination basin. And as they increased the dose of that push, look what happened. The probability of the AI hallucinating just skyrocketed.
And there it is. That's the smoking gun. This proved that these basins aren't just a correlation. They are attractor-like, meaning they actively pull the AI's thoughts toward them. They are a direct, physical cause of the errors inside the model's own mental map.
So this discovery wasn't just theoretical. It led to an actual solution. They developed a method they call adaptive steering, and it's basically a GPS for the AI's thoughts. It watches where the AI's trajectory is going, and if it starts to drift too close to a hallucination basin, it gives it a tiny, calculated pushback toward the factual region. And the results are incredible. A huge reduction in hallucinations, up to 40%, without any expensive retraining.
And that leaves us with this final, kind of mind-bending thought. For so long, we've treated these massive AI models like impenetrable black boxes. But this research suggests we might be right on the verge of actually mapping their internal world. So what if making AI truly trustworthy isn't about more data or bigger models, but about understanding and maybe even correcting the very geometry of their thoughts?